and welcome. In this video, I will address basic questions about how scholars doing research, writing, and publication, or advancing new knowledge, can use AI tools in informed and effective ways that are also ethically, socially, and professionally responsible. I'm not opposed to AI. I just believe that we need to use it not just effectively, but also responsibly. As AI tools help scholars at dozens of tasks during the research process and dozens of tasks during the writing, review, and publication processes, it is getting harder to simply say, I won't use AI, because they undermine the quality, reliability, and responsibility of research conduct and scholarly ethics. So it's not so straightforward. When used with adequate knowledge and skills and caution, they can not only speed up the process, but also enhance the process or processes, sometimes even leveraging the quality and rigor of our work, depending on many, many careful boundaries we have set. So it is how we use it, why we use it. Let's use a three-dimensional framework to see how to make AI use effective and responsible. You could say there are 3 dimensions, or 4 or 5. I see 3. If you have adequate knowledge or seek to gain adequate knowledge of your subject and not depend on AI as the knowledgeable partner, you're likely to be in a safe territory. If you are skilled enough to do the research you're doing without AI, you probably are going to use AI effectively. Only scholars who have adequate skills for doing the research and writing without AI can do research and writing with AI. It's like if you don't know what you're doing, giving you more and more powerful tools could make you hurt yourself and never get the job done properly or responsibly. And finally, only a scholar who has high standards can use AI in ways that are responsible. And if you are an ethical researcher with a high standard, you're also likely to set your boundaries accordingly. And in fact, only responsible use can be effective use, because those who use effectively but irresponsibly are usually making fools of themselves. It's like someone who doesn't know the difference between growing your own vegetables and stealing vegetables from his neighbor. That farmer will never do good farming. Let's put it this way, the 3 dimensions. On the one hand is the user's knowledge, and on the other hand is the AI's knowledge. If the two are not playing the game in a equitable, in a comparable way, then maybe AI is this and you are this. So you're never learning and never taking responsibility for the knowledge that AI has generated. But why should we know what AI knows, how it knows? Because if we don't try to think about the underlying information about AI, if we cannot judge it, if it seems adequate or accurate, then we're likely to be this person. If we not only have the knowledge of the subject, but also knowledge of the AI's ability or information, if we can judge it, this game will become more balanced. Similarly, skill-wise, same thing happens. If we know how to do research, if we know how to use the tool, if we know how to use non-AI research tools, if I have good, adequate knowledge of methodology, if I are a very savvy, very skillful, very expert researcher before the age of AI, we're likely to go into the age of AI with adequate skills. But it is also now necessary to know AI as research and methodology and analysis and interpretation tools. If we have not tested, explored, and broken the AI tools in the process, simply asking AI to do it, we're likely to become fools, because a farmer who cannot do his job is not likely to do a good job with a new kind of tractor. The tractor needs skills to be driven. Some things are far more complicated than the tractor. Imagine a very sophisticated multitasking tractor which does everything from beginning to end. You would need to become a very trained farmer to use that new multitasking tool effectively. Same thing with responsibility. If we are responsible, we are likely to be able to counter the irresponsibility and unethical and the unconscious nature of AI. So it's the same thing with knowledge and skills and responsibility. Let's unpack them one by one. Let's start with knowledge. The question is, who is the expert? Imagine AI as the y-axis and the user as the x-axis. If the ability of AI to generate look-alike information, look-alike knowledge, or patterns of words continues to grow, and our ability does not continue to grow, then definitely we will always be going into the danger zone with AI. If you're not moving to the right, but only moving up, then we are in a very risky position. So I would call this the safety zone, to use a basic graph, and this one the danger zone. For all of us, how safe an AI tool is in terms of knowledge, in terms of reliability, accuracy, it depends on our ability to judge the content. Called at the line of optimal but risky use. The more risky may be more potentially useful, but it is a double-edged sword. More safe may be less useful. So people do want to push the boundary, but the more boundary pushing they do, the more risk they take. So it is a very sensitive game. So I would call this particular area the critical AI literacy area. One of my colleagues from Egypt, Mahabali, has used the word critical AI literacy. I think she's the first one to use it. I've used the word, the same phrase, but I also jokingly call it the kale. Like K-A-L-E, C-A-I-L may also be not very tasty, but it is very healthy, like kale. Let's go even deeper into the knowledge issue. Before the age of AI, this is what the world of knowledge looked like according to mainstream ideas about what knowledge means. But this is a terribly bad map. Why? Because somebody plugged in the number of journal articles published by country, and America looked like that, Western Europe looked like that, Eastern Europe not so much, the cradle of human civilization, all of Africa looked like that. Look at South American continent with massive number of languages, epistemologies, cultures, systems, histories, nothing, and Asia is squeezed too. This is not how to think about knowledge. If you try to make this map based on where mango is produced, then this would be like tiny, tiny shred. And India would be very, very big. Costa Rica, which I went last year, would be massively big. I once picked 50 kilograms of mango for fun. And the whole southern hemisphere would be very big. If you do that by orange, maybe Florida and some parts of Asia would be big, right? Apple, again, America and this northern part would be big. So it depends on what you call knowledge. Is journal article knowledge? Is that the only knowledge? That was already a bad idea. That knowledge was measured in terms of journal article rather than books and reports and embodied knowledge in the professions and farming and technology and cooking and families and community, faith and everything else. Now, when you put AI into the knowledge map system, where does the AI do the inputting of the data? Again, it becomes even worse. China may be catching up a little bit, but we're going to have a completely disappearing map. According to one study, knowledge about Africa and from Africa is about 1% in today's AI datasets, and that's not healthy. If you look at where the money is invested in AI, this is where the AI startups are. Again, this is not going to do justice to especially people in the global south, where new knowledge must be created based on the realities that is not captured in the journal articles. And instead of trying to fix this weird map, we are going to make the map even worse. And therefore, the idea that AI knows everything, the impression that it knows everything is simply because it pretends to know everything. It's designed to act like it knows everything. It doesn't. If 1% of data is from Africa with 54 countries and 20% of world population, the cradle of human civilization with hundreds of languages and thousands of epistemologies, then I think we have a deep, deep problem. And there is also a rhetorical deficit in the case of AI, because if you simply look at how AI thinks, it thinks in very mainstream Western ways. And the impact on education, impact on research is huge if you look at how AI looks at knowledge and produces knowledge. Not to mention the political and economic harms and injustices. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but pause here if you want. Let's go to the second aspect of AI, skills. As I said, a scholar needs not only adequate knowledge to be able to judge AI and to play the seesaw game with AI, a scholar also needs skills to play the seesaw game with AI. Now, how well can I do the research without AI? And how well can I do the research with AI? It depends on my skill. Just for a simple example, if somebody is using what is called zero-shot prompting in prompt engineering, without any data that you provide to AI or no context that you provide to AI, and simply ask a generic broad question and hoping that it knows everything. Or you don't provide AI a role, like the role that it is capable of taking. Is it able to take the role of a farmer in the rural Moroccan village? No. Is it able to take the role of the religious priest in a religion that is not very well known in the mainstream scholarship? No. And that is going to show you both the potential of AI and the pitfalls of AI. If it cannot play that role, if it does not understand the context, then there is a limit. But to the extent that it has input data from you, context from you, and role that you're asking it to play, then it becomes a little helpful. So don't use a zero-shot, one-shot technique, broad, vague prompting, but use a context-rich, multi-shot, interactive prompting. Provide background, provide context, provide role. Go beyond one shot, make it interactive, use examples and samples. Even better, ask why it was saying what it is saying. It's called chain of thought command. Ask it to break down the process. It may not be reliable, it may be making stuff up still, but at least you're challenging it. Self-consistency, ask it to answer the same question 5 times and see if it is consistent. And then you can ask, why are you saying different things about the same thing? That also will help you to see the limitations. And then the other one is reframing. Change your wording. Shift until you're like, I think it now understands what I'm saying. Because if you give a very bad command, garbage in, garbage out. Again, role-based was already mentioned. Critique and revise. Make it demanding. Provide critique and challenge it. Push back and see what happens. It might actually say, sorry, I was just making it up. It was all fictional. I did not actually know what the source of this data is. I just created patterns of words that look like what you want. Or you may want to create a multimodal. For example, if I ask, make me the image of a Moroccan worker going to work, it may give you a ridiculously insensitive, culturally misinformed, stereotypical, and prejudiced image. So all of these will help you to push, help you to make it a little better, but they will also help you to see the limitations of AI. So please don't stop at vague, broad, zero-shot or one-shot prompting. Another way to look at how you can develop your skills for using AI is to see that you identify dumb tasks that AI tools can do, and it doesn't hurt your research mission. For example, if I say, give me a list of Tuesdays and Thursday dates in a table column from January to May, then I don't need to do this dumb task at the beginning of the semester. It gives me a schedule for the semester. In fact, I'm also going to ask ChatGPT this summer, give me a list of Tuesdays and Thursday dates in a table column with fall break taken out for Stony Brook University. I'm going to check if it can go find out when fall break is for Stony Brook University from the website and then take up that week. If it cannot, I will be able to tell you, you're not even able to do that dumb task, so how would I trust you for something more intellectual, sensitive? Yeah, sometimes I've done things like, can you separate student names from this table? If they're familiar names, it'll do it, otherwise it'll mess it up. Or extract email, that's an easier task, and make separate it with commas. Point out paragraphs in this manuscript where I have repeated myself, or can you tell me where I should be looking in this long article for this particular theme, maybe? Because it is extremely good at semantic analysis, lexical analysis, or suggest possible titles for a journal article, and I might go, wow, or none of those make sense. You didn't understand. Anyway, it is by testing and breaking AI tools that you're going to develop your skills, as well as creating the boundaries of your responsible use. One way to look at how to be responsible in terms of skillful use of AI is to separate the lower order task and higher order sensitive task. But you might realize in the testing process that even a very low order may actually be not so low order, such as brainstorming. How do you know it is helping you to brainstorm in a completely misinformed manner, or shallow manner, or misleading you, or making you say wow, but that wow is coming from your ignorance rather than your command of the subject? You might interact rather to refine your ideas, but be careful. If you go to your professor or your senior colleague or your, someone knowledgeable in the field, or the farmer next door who knows about farming, maybe you would be wowed also. So just because it is easy to be wowed within 3 minutes doesn't mean that that is what a scholar should do. You might want to summarize an article, but be careful. It may summarize in a way that is leaning in a certain direction. If you actually read the article and compare the two, you might decide that this is not really low order, but rather high order. Anyway, pause here and look at these low order to high order, but I want to emphasize that what you think is a low order may be a very high order in some cases, depending on how the tool is acting or how you are using or your skill level, and what you think is higher order may be fairly easy for the AI tool to do. You would never know without testing. I'm not saying this is the rule. I'm saying these are some testing frameworks. Let us go a little deeper into the skill area with a focus on writing, because writing is the means of knowledge production and sharing. Not only is it necessary for scholars and researchers to have a mastery of the subject matter, but also the mastery of the writing process and research process. I have a second master's degree in writing studies and a PhD in writing studies, and I have been studying bad ideas that people have about writing for many years. I'm actually working on a book along with a few other writing professors titled Bad Ideas About Writing in AI. Here are a few the book will cover. One is, this is before AI, by the way, and the book is about bad ideas about writing and AI, brought about by the AI age. People believe that writing is a linear process, single, simple, and linear, but really it's not. You go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, right? Your idea develop along the way. Writing is used for facilitating a lot of different processes, from research to note-taking to many, many processes. The scholar Charles Bezeman actually says it's many processes entangled with each other like a lasagna layers. The other one is a transient myth. Like if you once learn how to write, then it is over. Transient. Not true. If that was the case, you learn to write in 4th grade and it is over. Nope. Professors are still learning new genres, new levels, and new complexities of writing. The other one is transparency myth, which is you write it up. Once you're clear about the idea, you simply write it up. That's not true, because writing actually is the process by which you flesh out the idea, explore the idea, figure out the idea, discover the idea, and organize the idea. The next one is hierarchy myth. I kind of indicated before, some things are lower order, other things are higher order. Nope, it depends. Sometimes editing is a very high order work because you are investing your intellectual energy and nuance in the process. Sometimes brainstorming may be lower order. It depends on what it is that you're trying to do, and a lot of other variables. Another one is content myth, that content and writing are separate, that writing is simply the form. Or writing is all about the style. Not true. That there are some brilliant genius writers, born geniuses. Not true. These are bad ideas. Now what happens? AI came along and made the bad ideas far, far worse. For example, on the linearity, AI is making a lot of people now think that AI will help you to skip and get to the big step. Be careful. Each of them comes with a risk. And unless you test it, you are not able to tell. Transience. Oh, you don't have to learn it anymore. Look at that. The myth of transience became far worse with AI. AI can write. Yeah, it can produce look-alike sentences. That's not writing. If you're thinking about discovery and development and fleshing out an organization and intellectual positioning and advancing new knowledge and finding evidence and interpreting it, that's different. Transparency. AI is better. Writing it up. You do all the other work. You do the research. AI will do the writing up. Not true, because writing was the body. Like a dancer, and the dance cannot be separated. Writing and thinking cannot be separated. There's no dance without the dancer. There's no writing without thinking. And the hierarchy myth. There's no lower order to offload to AI. I said that maybe some things are dumb tasks like this. But the moment you make a list, you'll begin to see that that's not so easy to separate from lower to higher order. It becomes complicated. Now, content myth. AI knows it all, so it delivers the content. No, you are the scholar. You're supposed to create new content by finding and interpreting and discussing and making sense of the realities of the world that you're capturing through your research. If content was distinct from writing, then AI could handle the content part of it or writing part of it. Neither is true. Style, yeah. AI can seem to write an extremely effective style, especially if your language is weak. AI's language is much better than most people's. especially if it's a foreign language, and it gives the impression that it's a good writer. But writing is not style, and AI makes that myth worse. Genius. Of course, AI is said to process words in 200, 300 dimensions. Human beings can only process words in 3 to 4 dimensions. And that gives the impression that AI is much more powerful. It's like comparing yourself with a bulldozer. If you compare yourself with a bulldozer, of course, you're not as strong as a bulldozer. The point is, we are not bulldozers and we don't need to be. Bulldozers can lift rocks. What we're doing is daily life, shopping bags, or lifting your baby. That's a whole different thing. We're not simply looking for the power of word processing. We're looking for a responsible, thoughtful process of research and writing. One more thing, writing is not one thing. It is a process involving 15, 20, 30 layers, including tasks that go under writing and other tasks that overlap with research or reading or data analysis. Writing is always there. If you cannot do this on your own, how could you use AI to do them for you? When someone says, I'm using AI as a research assistant, ask them, so how skilled a researcher are you? Because a research assistant needs a qualified researcher to work for, right? You can't have a research assistant without a good researcher. So if AI is your assistant, ask yourself, how good of a researcher are you? Please look at this and see that we do a lot of things, and with each of these, we need to take our responsibility with adequate skills. Number 3, let us wrap up, is ethics. If we don't have a high enough responsibility, ethical standard, professional and social responsibility, we could be creating disasters in the name of new knowledge. We could be creating fake bridges as an engineer, fake medicines as medical scientists, fake knowledge as researchers in the field of sociology and humanities, fake history, fake culture. We could be doing a lot of damage. Once we realize the importance of truth value, social value, we can see why AI is dangerous as well as how to use it effectively. So how do we do that? Let's go deeper. If we look at the nature of genuine scholarship, we can begin to see what AI is doing and giving the impression that it is actually producing knowledge when it is not. It is producing look-alike sentences, research-like, paper-like, sentence-like, paragraph-like language. It's a word processor. Even when AI tells you that it is locating information, if you check the source, there's no guarantee that the source and what it provides you is accurate. Even when it gives you a quotation, you will need to check against the source, because for AI companies, there's not a lot of financial value to only create a tool that is accurate rather than creating plausible patterns or fictional patterns of words. If you look at the nature of scholarship, the purpose of scholarship, it is driven by curiosity. We want to find out new things rather than create plausible word patterns based on limited data, app design, and market forces. And also limited by user knowledge, user skills, and user ethics. The purpose of research is advancing disciplinary understanding or addressing societal needs. Research also means new evidence, using rigorous methods, transparent process, building on scholarly conversation. It is not simply creating look-alike sentences. Research means novelty of thought and interpretation. Even when we're working with existing knowledge, we're trying to create novel thoughts and perspectives in a very human way. AI cannot do what is known as abductive reasoning. It can do deductive, inductive sometimes, but there is truly no abductive reasoning that scholarship is based on. Intellectual integrity and social responsibility are the backbone of research. So research demands citation, research demands trust, accountability to our peers and the public, and we need to show the contextual sensitivity and cultural awareness. AI has none of these. It has no regard for intellectual property, no regard for privacy, and no regard for ethical stance or accountability, and it usually does not cite sources. Even if you ask it to cite certain sources, the rest of the material is coming from you don't know where, and it will not tell you. It's a black box. Scholars are a transparent box, scholarship, but AI is a black box. Ultimately, research is about public impact and scholar identity. Whenever we do research, we're trying to gain respect as scholars. We are trying to gain voice, identity. We are not simply trying to create something that is detached from community or purpose, or something that is not a new contribution, but rather a regurgitation of the same old idea. To look at it another way, why is AI use risky? One, AI-generated content can be inaccurate, as we all know. It can be incomplete, and we must cross-check. Two, AI datasets are limited. I'm simply summarizing what I've been saying. AI algorithms are limited in their thought patterns. For example, if you look at the list created by most of the AI tools, then you will see, why is everything a list? Even when it is about getting writing done, even if you're simply writing something as simple as a thank you note to a colleague, try to copy paste that thank you note and send it to a colleague. If they find out that's what you did, it becomes inauthentic and insulting. Or students who ask a complex question by using ChatGPT insult the teachers. Like, I wanted you to learn. Why didn't you do it? I didn't want you to create a fancy paragraph. That was not the goal. Even if a detailed AI list of suggestions comes from, let's say, a boss, someone with power over you, or comes from a person who is working for you, it still comes as dishonest, if not cruel. And these are the reasons why AI use is risky from an ethical perspective. Think about research. It goes far beyond that. And therefore, when it comes to content, it is not okay to simply use plausible patterns. Our content as researchers is credible, evidence-based, real-world data and interpretation. We should not be getting credit for something that we did not create. It's like not selling the vegetables grown in our garden, but selling the vegetables grown by our neighbors or found at a cart nearby you don't even know who it belongs to. It's about credibility. It's about contribution to the society. It's about the craft of research. It's about the care we have towards society. So how can you become more ethical? A simple rule would be the simple golden rule. If you won't accept another person doing something to you, don't do it to them. If you won't accept medicine from a fake doctor, don't create fake medicine. If you won't accept a bridge that will collapse, don't create a bad bridge. If you won't accept knowledge that is not truthful, don't create knowledge that is not truthful. That's the golden rule. The other one is, when you have power, it is not enough to use the golden rule. We must go one step forward. Do not harm. As a doctor, as an engineer, as a lawyer, we have tremendous power. As scholars, researchers, scientists, tremendous power and privilege. And we have additional responsibility than maybe the farmer. Accountability matters because ultimately AI does not take accountability. We must. In the field of rhetoric, my field, there is a test called the Taras test. It's an interesting test. T is for truthfulness of the message. A is authenticity of the persuader, or as a persuader, someone who is trying to teach somebody something, I must be authentic to the other person. Respect for the audience. I need to have respect for the reader, my students, my community. Equity. That means I need to make sure that it is equitable in terms of power, privilege, or responsibility. And finally, social responsibility, the S. So, truthfulness, authenticity, respect, equity, and social responsibility for common good. And if you put all of these together, you could remember just one, even if you forget all of these: transparency. If you can tell your children and your reader or your colleague how you use AI, why you use AI, and what AI tool you use, you are fine. If you cannot tell your children or your neighbors or your reader how you use AI and why you use it, what AI tools you use, then you should probably not be using it. So that is how to overcome the double standard of expecting a different thing from other people. If you want healthy food from the food seller, if you want good medicine from the doctor, then we should be giving good knowledge to the society, not fake knowledge and false knowledge. There are a lot of tools out there. You can use some of these tools for topic development, literature review, research design, data collection. I just made a list. You can look at it here and you can go and find out about these tools, test them, break them, use them. But the point is, how are we going to use them in a way that is responsible? But that's not shallow, lazy, dishonest, or irresponsible. Because if we are scholars, our identity and our respect in society comes from being deep, hardworking, honest, responsible. We should be known for having enormous knowledge, skills, and especially ethics. So finally, here's one simple approach when you're using AI in a way that is effective, knowledgeable, and responsible. Break it down, your research process, your writing process, into many, many steps. For example, here I have these steps. Like if a student is trying to do an assignment, if we're trying to do a research project, the first thing is to understand it. How would you understand this without AI? And how would you understand this with AI? And how would you use AI to do it? If we're trying to do research, how would we do it before AI, with AI, and prompting of AI? If we can compare how we would use AI with and without using AI, then we are likely to find out how to use AI effectively and responsibly. And test the same tools for different purposes, or different tools for different purposes. Not all tools are designed to do the same thing. So it depends on the tool's affordances as well as your skills. Develop ways to enhance learning. Don't jump to getting it done. We are always learning. Develop ways to enhance productivity, but not being productive without being reliable or responsible. And when you're using AI, check if the knowledge is real, if the knowledge is reliable, and then if the knowledge is relevant. If you simply ask, is it relevant? You may be using unreal, fake knowledge or unreliable knowledge. This is why AI should never be cited, in my opinion. The moment you put quotation marks around AI content, you become a joker, not a scholar. Because that is only plausible pattern. It may be accurate, but I think we should rather say, I used AI to brainstorm my own ideas in this paragraph. These are my ideas, rather than AI content. This is a serious point of discussion. Be careful not to be accused of plagiarism. Be careful not to short circuit your learning and researching and finding new knowledge. Be careful not to lose your credibility. Be careful not to lose your relationship with other people. Okay, one more time. If we can balance our knowledge, our skills, and our ethical responsibility to our society and don't look like this, we will be fine. We may not look like this as the user because AI is extremely powerful, but at least within the scope and limitations of our use, we need to create a balance between AI and us. Thank you very much.